Hi Kev, welcome back to the channel.
Thank you.
And you can see down here on the table today I brought down a number of tracker style blades that we're going to discuss with Kev, some pros and cons. So here we go. I just wanted to get your kind of thoughts on the style of knife, or the tracker style of blade of knife, or whatever you want to call it. Just your thoughts, some pros and cons to each model, and what you think you'd like to change and what you wouldn't change, and what think's good, what think's bad. So, where would you like to start?
I don't know. Well, I suppose my interest in the tracker came from the film The Hunted. Probably, as at least most people's sort of first experience of the knife was probably from that film. And that one, that's not the one from the film, is it?
No, it's Dave Beck's one.
So Dave Beck's one was used, but that's kind of
So
modelled
this knife here is kind of modelled closely on it, but it's a couple of alterations done.
Right, okay. Well, that to me looks a bit more like the knife than that one, obviously with the saw and stuff and the length of that. But when I first saw that film, probably like most guys are like, "Whoa, check that knife out, that's awesome." Yep. You know, and then you sort of looked into it a bit and you found out it was a bit of a Marmite knife. You know, there was a lot of people saying, "Oh, this is the best thing since sliced bread," and other people saying, "I absolutely cannot stand that knife, it's rubbish." And it kind of put me off it, to be honest. I didn't pursue it any further at that point. I just felt that it was a knife that wasn't worth me putting the effort into finding and getting if it was going to be a knife that I was going to have nothing but problems with. And so it sort of died a death at that point, but over the years I was asked numerous times to make a tracker, and it caused me to look at the design and try and work out what the Marmite-ness, if that's a word, was of it. What was it that caused people not to like it? Could it be improved, or was the design the best it could be? But as you can see here, you know, even commercially available, those two are completely different, and that's different again, you know. And so it's obviously a design that can be tweaked, and to me, the fact that there's such a variation in the knife available means that they've not found the perfect design. They're still searching, they're still feeling around, they like the concept of it, but they haven't found something that just works all round.
So do you think that maybe be down to the individual user then, and their skill level and their capabilities?
I think that's a strong portion of the problem, if you like, is people's, how do I put this, people's either unwillingness to spend time with a particular knife. They want it easy. And so, you know, when you see videos of bushcraft and stuff, they want something that's kind of dead easy to sharpen, like easy to use, they fit in with the crowd with, and various things. And in the UK that means they want a Scandi ground woodlaw clone. And these are stronger or better received in America for the type of things they do. And basically, obviously, it's an American knife, American film, they all like that. In the UK, I think a lot of people try them and then can't be bothered because it takes a lot of time to get used to it. And even with the experimentation that we've done with, you know, various of these models, even coming down to, well, what's the shallowest one? So that's probably the shallowest hook.
Quarter round.
Yeah, the quarter round, and that one that I made is probably the deepest one of these ones here.
Right.
And the way they work, all of these across the range, the way they work and produce feathers, it's all different. Okay. And so, apart from having to practice with your particular knife, obviously your experiences as well, that the type of material you're working with has a massive effect on the type of feathers that you can create and how easy it is to work with that type of knife. And so when you combine that with the variables in the blades themselves, depending on their choice, and also, I'm rambling here I suppose, but a significant thing that you found was the actual height of the grind and the thickness of the blade, and how that affected your ability to chop with it.
Yeah, definitely did. Well, I bought the blade and I like the, as you say, concepts of the blade itself. When I've done survival courses in the past, everything's principle based, because principles always work and techniques don't. So the principles that these tracker style blades are based on, a heavy duty, hard use knife that's not going to let you down, it's not going to break on you, and it's going to come out at the end of the day and out the course with you. Now that's the reason I was interested in it, and I just wanted to see how hard I could push my knives, and they're definitely, all of them are up to that, definitely that. But the various shapes and sizes of the quarter rounds has a different effect with each blade when it comes to actually producing feathers, shavings, etc. But I definitely think the concept's right, or the principle's right, that the knife's been built around about. For me, the skill levels need to be honed on each individual knife. For talking say this knife here, I had that designed for a large chopping blade, almost like a machete, but with some of the concepts of the tracker style blade itself.
Out of interest, this was your own design, so that hook is obviously different. You've got the sort of like bolo section here at the end of your, I can't remember what you call that. What do you call that again?
The draw section.
The draw section. It's more open, more acute in an angle there.
Yeah.
How did that work for feathers for you?
What I actually found with that knife was I actually used it as a draw knife to produce them, and it was much quicker, faster. But I think bushcrafters today call it maybe a Siberian feather or shavings, because it's slightly thicker.
Right.
And that was good enough for the area I was working at the time when I used that, so I didn't actually use it the way that you can produce feathers with the rest of the knives here. I'd say the Shirley's been the best used when it comes to producing the feathers. But you just have to tweak each individual knife to the individual task that you've got at hand.
Why do you think that has produced feathers better?
I think you can manipulate it much easier in your hand. It's sharper than any of the other blades, and the grinds are better, and also the recurve on here. When you start to draw, if you start drawing for this section here, as you bite the wood, it actually pulls it round the hook, and it just seems the recurve assists the start of the feather making.
Right. Okay.
So that's what I found with this.
So it's basically the size of it. It's just more dexterous, is what you're feeling with that one.
So you can, the way you can handle it, and it just feels easier to pinch up, and you can get a short stick. But the rest of them, because of the length, it jams into your ribs.
Yeah.
So what I've found, you need to pin a log and then draw it for the best feathers, or have a maybe 3/4 of a metre length stick to do the drawing with the rest of them. Whereas this is just, doesn't matter what size, a batting piece of wood, say 12 inches, this was ideal.
Yeah.
And the dexterity that this gives in your hand, and it can produce brilliant feathers no matter what part of the knife you use, and a really sharp 90-degree spine, assisted for doing the fuzz. So that's been, I would say, the best I've used.
Yeah, well, when you were talking about the length of the stick, just having a wee play, because obviously I'd not seen this one until today. I'd never actually physically held one of these before.
Right.
And what I'm intrigued with this is this has got one of the shallowest hooks, and yet it produces really, really nice feathers off of that.
Yeah, I would say that's maybe mixed when it comes to producing the best feathers, but it all depends on the type of feather that you want, and a lot of it's actually down to the grain in the wood as well, I've found, with them all. The shape of the branch that you're actually using, that's something that's related with them all. The grain of the wood needs to be right, so that's one thing I'm finding.
So no little pin knots and stuff like that.
That just stops it, and then it kind of ruins it. Obviously, dead standard wood, deciduous type trees produce the best feathers, especially if it's well dried out. your knife was really good with the gut hook when I went through the canvas and stuff like that. It produces great feathers, and they almost all produce a different type of feather. Some finding.
On the hook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Around.
Yeah. Yeah. That obviously that's down because we've got such a variance in actual hook shapes and depths.
And what I've got here is by David Crawford, and this is the small tracker model he does, and you can see it's got the Broc label on the side of the blade here. I found this a fantastic wee small bushcrafting blade, a bit too thin for my liking in the stock, a bit small. My kind of idea behind the tracker blade was the brutes of a knife, and when I got this actually as a trade-in, and when I got it I was like, I think this should be a lot thicker than what it actually is, but it's worth its weight in gold. It's done a fantastic job. All you have to do is look at the review on it. David Crawford's done a fantastic job with this. I really did like it. I was quite surprised how much it could take for how thin it was, but just within myself, I know if I really did push this, I would break it, and I wouldn't like to do it because it's a bushcrafting knife and it's not supposed to be hammered to death. You know. So, what do you think of this one?
Similar, at least in kind of profile to the one on the film. So I quite like the look of it. The handle, as you know, my handles are all textured for grip, but this one, it's got a bit of texture to it. It's slender. It's a comfortable handle for the fact that it's sort of like slabby.
Yeah.
But it's comfortable. In the film, it was a brute. You know, it was designed. You know, that guy was out there. He was hammering it. You know, and to me, a tracker is meant to be out there, and it's meant to be something that's really hardcore. And that's my thoughts on this one. This one looks to be a 4mm stock. Saw seems quite well. The notching saw, or whatever it is, seems quite usable. But it's too light. To me, it's quite a much more effort to actually swing that than I'd be wanting to do, and it's a little bit small for what I think the tracker should be. I think that would be the frustration of this. I think it's probably going to feather quite nicely, given the shape of the hook here. It's very similar to that one, which we find is the better one.
Yeah, I've done fantastic feathers. I found very much like yourself. I just found it too light. But I'm not actually too sure what David Crawford's actual concepts of this knife was. Was he producing a small bushcraft type blade, nice lightweight for bushcrafters here in the UK? I'm actually not too sure, as I got it as a trade-in, so I really liked it for the small task run about the camp, bushcrafting, very good.
As I say, the handle's comfy. It's got that iconic look about it. The only thing for me is maybe a bit light, you know. So, yeah.
Right, so here I'm down today, and this is going to be phase 3. I'm going to try and get you to alter the grinds on this, because to me this is the one that the Hunted film's kind of based on. This kind of design here. This is the Tops T1. I've done a fair amount of alteration. As you can see, I've taken off the heavy traction coating. I've actually had to do a fair bit of sanding to the handles, handle slabs, and put thumb scallops in it. To me, this is far too expensive here in the UK. It's probably reasonably priced in the States, but here, no. For the amount of alterations you need to do to this knife to get it functional, it's definitely not worth the money here in the UK. But I do like the heft of this. This reminds me kind of something along the lines of how Boost do their knife. Extreme heavy use with wide, obtuse angles. They know people are going to heavily use these, and they're going to be tough on them, so that's probably why they do it. But I find when I'm striking the logs with this, it actually is like a sharp wedge. It's just breaking the branches apart rather than cutting them, you know, so it definitely needs change. And all you have to do is actually look on YouTube, and the amount of people are actually doing it, I just think it's definitely being addressed. but I can see why Torx do it. So what's your thoughts on this knife? I know this is your first time actually using it today or seeing it.
Yeah. Well, as you say, this looks very like the knife from the film. And this is chunky. It's heavy. Not heavy as in I don't like it. It's sort of got a reassuring weight about it that you know you can really hammer this and it's gonna shrug it off.
Yeah.
So I do like that. Again, the saw slightly different from the Broc one.
Yeah.
You know, I was going to say this is angled from both sides, but that is too. And I see what you're saying with the grind, because if you look at the grind lines on both of those, they're about the same height up the blade.
Yeah.
But this is formula, that's nearly double the thickness.
Yeah.
And so that's going to give a wedging effect when it goes in, which is fine if you're actually splitting down end grain. It's going to burst it apart. But cross grain, it's going to wedge and stick.
Yeah.
And so, can I just go into that, like cutting, right? So, when you look at timber on a microscopic level, it's actually like a bunch of straws, because with the tree being upright, it's drawing water and nutrients up from the ground through the roots, out and out through the leaf system, and so it's a series of straws. And so, if you think about that when you're cutting, if you were to try and hit with something quite obtuse into a block of straws, it's going to squash them rather than cut into them and separate them.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I can see that being a problem with that. Again, when you're cutting, it's always useful when you're cutting timber, if you think of that straws type concept, when you're carving spoons and things, you can think about actually lifting and tearing the straws out or cutting through them when they've got support behind them. So, I don't know, maybe useful to some people, but yeah, I can see that being a problem there, and that needing to be ground significantly higher for that. However, as you say, I got a first shot at this today, and I like the hook. That's very shallow, but it produced really, really nice curls off of that. The handle is a lot more slabby than this one. It's slightly broader, so maybe that's why you're
And
feeling
I've
that.
also altered that, so it was a lot more slabby, I think.
Yeah,
and square.
I wouldn't have liked that as if that hadn't been altered. I mean, I'm okay with it just now, but I would actually sculpt that significantly more than it's had. And I saw your video about the exposing the tang. That's a really good point, because none of the, apart from the one I've made and the one you've made.
The David Broc one, you can see the scale where we're hitting it. It's been slightly shifted.
Yep.
So I just knew through time, and I need to do that because of the types of woods that I work with. I need to batten all the time, and people are, oh, use an axe. Well, no, I don't use axes.
No.
Very seldom do I use an axe, just because of the safety. Because I'm out in the woods 9 times out of 10 myself, and if it goes wrong with an axe, it really goes wrong.
You don't want that.
So I prefer a large knife, and that's why I have this collection of knives.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. But this, I like this in general. I like this. The only thing I don't really like about it is the handle slabs and the grind height, which is pretty much the same as yours, I guess. And if those were altered, I think this is a brutal knife. What is that? Is that 1/4 inch? So I do actually quite like that. And once we actually reground that, assuming I get it right, then I would like a wee shot of that to see how that works. So yeah.
Right, so this brings us to the next one, and I've got this as a trade-in, and this is David Crawford's large tracker model, and this is based on the Dave Beck. I think this is the animal model. I could be wrong there, so don't quote me on it. It's based on, and I've not had a chance to use it, but I like the size of this. I like the forward chopping weight. I like the handle shape on it. Again, it hasn't got the exposed tang, which I'd like, but it has got an okay edge. I'd like it to be a bit sharper on this, but I much prefer this knife to the smaller model. And in my video, I picked it up for having this hook here.
Aye.
I just feel through time with heavy battering, which I was doing, there was a possibility. I just felt in my head that this could break off, and I says it was need to be heavier. So this is a heavier model, and you can see it's larger. I didn't like the saw. I just felt it was useless, and this doesn't have the saw. So he's rectified a lot of the problems, but I just feel this knife needs to be heavier again to give you the same kind of feeling, confidence that the Tops T1 does. So that's my feeling on this one, but it's a good knife. It feels comfortable. Really like it. And I'm looking forward to getting to use this one and doing a review on that. What's your thoughts on this one?
Just before I go to that, I noticed when you picked that up. So did you batten with this?
Yeah.
On this
Sauce,
piece? And did it wreck the batten, or did it actually do okay?
Done okay.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
It doesn't seem to stick in. With the small one, David Crawford's here, it did bite in, but it maybe have been deciduous type bark. I can't quite remember now. So it blocked that up, and it really did. This is quite an aggressive saw.
That's quite sharp. The teeth are narrow, so it's going to be like nails. It'll stick into the batten. That's why I was wondering about this, because these are quite broad. But because just when on the saw, I've never been a fan of saws on the backs of knives. I just, when you're battening, it just mangles your batten, in my opinion, or in my experience originally.
Right.
But I see bark stuck in this, and I just wondered if you'd batten, because with the breadth of this, or the thickness, I was just curious, because if that takes it, then that might alter my opinion of having a saw on the back of it.
There's definitely a difference in, well, once we finish filming here the day, you can have a shot and see for yourself.
Aye.
Get a feel. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So, this one thing I found when I made that tracker was that a little spur here interfered with getting the blade in for doing certain tasks. Just before you took that away, I got
Is
a
that
replay.
choil?
Aye, just at the castle here,
Right.
and so I ended up modifying that one to take that off,
Right.
so you could get in. So that bit I'm not sure about, and pretty much all of them have got, other than the Shirley actually, I've got that, and I'm not really keen on that bit. This is quite narrow, surprisingly narrow, but it's a 5mm blade. So the handle, obviously, pretty much identical to the smaller version, so no really issues with that.
The handle definitely works.
Aye. Other than the tang, and it's a little bit slabby for my liking. Other than that, no, fine. 5mm, decent stock. It's got good high. It's got higher grind lines, so that will chop better. Especially higher grind lines and only marginally thicker than this. It's gonna take a decent bite. Aesthetically, I mean, it's got the weight. It's got the weight for the chop. I don't know. I prefer the look of the more traditional shape, if you like, rather than the sort of clip point. That's just an aesthetic thing.
Yeah.
Having
That's down to the individual,
that's
isn't
it. Having never used this, I can't recall it, but it's definitely going to chop. You can feel that weight forward, and the hook's a bit deeper. Although when we did use it, it still produced nice feathers, but I felt that definitely. Obviously, I've not used the Shirley, but that worked. That's probably the best, other than the Shirley, which I've not had experience of. You were saying this was very good as well. I kind of like it, but I was going to say it doesn't really qualify as a tracker, but that excludes that one as well, and that one. So no. I think I want to play with this one. I think I'd want to kind of use this for a period of time, but I feel it's gonna chop. It's not got the heft that that's got. I think I would like that thicker. It might be an altogether more interesting knife with a really.
I'm sure David
thick stock.
Crawford says he would make them in any stock thickness that the individual wanted. So
a quarter inch might make that a kind of completely different knife.
Yeah, I think it would as well.
So yeah, on the whole, I like that one too.